think what's been quite interesting, Ozzy, just to add to that is regardless of, well, over and above the amazing functionality that you have and the big, hairy, audacious goal that you have to feed these individuals that really are in dire need, is that you have this variable supply structure with a constant demand, but very limited, if any, internal logistics capability from an infrastructure perspective. And I think what's been phenomenal in my involvement, and at least from a external view, it's just the willingness of the industry to really contribute. You're really moving all of this food from, the wholesalers, the suppliers, the retailers, the creators of the food to these communities by 100% leaning on the transport community, and that allows you to have the reach that you've had.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we look at the value chain, and if we look at food waste or food loss specifically, it's quite complex, but about 45% of 10 million tons, is sitting at farm or manufacturer level, and also at pack house level. So that is a considerable amount. That is many taut liners of stock, and it happens in different parts of the world. So for us, at the inception of SA Harvest, we always felt like for us to box smart and to really get clever about this, we would have to work with the giants, the logistics experts, and that is really how we got to Road Freight Association.
I know you mentioned the story of how you met Gavin, and I think it'll be a cool introduction for everybody to hear a little bit more than that. But I think just before we get to that, one of the major things, and I think that's one of the core messages we want to carry through today. In my first discussion with Ozzy, just coming from the corporate environment and being more business minded, I remember one of my first questions being, so how do you make money? And Ozzy had the same smile on his face that he has now, and a bit of a giggle and a chuckle, and he said, well, that's not how we measure our impact. I said, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So what is your ROI? And I think one of the core fundamental statements that you made for me that day, that is part of the reason why I'm here, is that you measure your ROI on actual impact of output. And that really just resounds with regards to our talk today, saying that there's almost a systemic change currently taking place where transport is a transport game and you measure income based on ROI, and it's a very low margin business, as we all know. So what would be the real link for transporters getting involved? And we'll get a little bit more into detail later, but it's more that mindset, and I see that happening day in, day out, about, yes, it is about making money because we are corporates and that's why we survive, but almost that internal systemic change and saying we can make money and survive as transport companies while having a fundamental impact on society by lending a helping hand to businesses like SA Harvest.
Absolutely, Jacques. So for us, it's about really building a scalable collective. Being in the logistics space, it's something that we always knew from inception, we're never going to do just by ourselves. The capex required to move the volume of food that we need to be moved would be absolutely impossible. So That's why it was so important for us to join hands with RFA and get involved with the logistics guys and really understand the logistics space. And that's how we came up with the solution of, looking at the empty legs, mapping them, and being able to move stock that way through different logistics partners.
That's quite, just when you said empty legs, it was quite a funny expression, because I think if you're in the transport industry, a swear word is the word dead legs. So when I initially spoke to Ozzy first and he was speaking about these dead legs, and Gavin, I know that you mentioned this as well, I said, please do not use that term. It's empty legs. So I think if we cut through all of it, to just really lean into that. So the real value proposition being here is that we know that in the transport space, it's measurability of action of assets, and making sure that your assets are active as much as possible, obviously cutting down on the operational cost as best you possibly can without cutting on the safety side. And that really pushes that margin, which is minuscule at best. The value proposition that you have with supporting a company like SA Harvest is the Section 18A tax certification that basically boils down to full value of load up to 10% revenue annual of business. Which gives you that rands and cents beneficiation of being involved with an entity like this. But I think more so in something that's really coming to the forefront and has so for the past while is the impact on an ESG and SDG perspective. ESG and SDG have been these buzzwords over the past 18, 24, 36 months. But we see businesses, the likes of the Vector Logistics, the Unitransfers, the DP Worlds, really starting to lean into what this means, in the sense that get the measurability of your impact of your ESG, understand the SDG platform. And I believe what SA Harvest is doing phenomenally well now is almost providing a platform to say, we would like to partner with these logistics entities. Yes, you are helping us transport food because we don't have our own transport capability. We provide you with the value proposition of the Section 18A, but more so on the basis of the transportation of this food, we could possibly impact SDG 3, 2, 7, and 9, just as an example. And how does that match your ESG portfolio? So you have that added benefit of empowering the logistics service providers to improve on their ESGs. And then lastly, obviously, the CSI spend. We know that it is always a prerogative across various nationals in order to make sure that their CSI budget is spent accordingly. And what a good just prospect to be part of something like this, using that CSI budget and contributing to the provision of food to previously less fortunate communities.
Doc, I think you really touched on something very important there. In the space that we work in, we found that there was very little transparency. So we built a technology platform, which was very important for us to be able to show what comes into our warehouse and exactly where it gets delivered. And we've, over the last 2 years, we've really been building out that technical capabilities. And through digitization, we are now able to show movement of stock right through to a beneficial organization, demographics, who they're feeding, etc. And it helps lots of different people in the value chain be able to show impact, geolocate the impact in close proximity to their own operations. Exactly. With the logistics guys, it's really about impact on the existing routes that they have. And it's an interesting space, and it really is evolving.
And it's a ripple effect across all silos of the supply chain. So it's the transportation that's provided, but we also have amazing partners, and I call them collaborative partnerships, that we constantly pursuing at the moment, that's making warehousing space available, that's helping with the pre-planning of trips and route optimization. So it's using that intrinsic supply chain knowledge, working with a collaborative partner like SA Harvest. And yes, the infrastructure of the truck is provided, but it's that overarching supply chain knowledge that really helps you to get the food from donor to beneficiator.
Completely agree with you, Jock. And what we found in the last couple of years is that so many of the logistics guys have got relationships already on the ground. They're working with certain food manufacturers or farmers, so it enables them to have a solution for their existing clients as well. I think that is key and very important.
Yeah, I think without sharing any names and just keeping respectful confidentiality in some of these conversations, is that we have a typical example is a large supply chain group that we currently working quite closely with in order to get more structure in that supply chain functionality. Case in point, we visited them a couple of weeks ago, really trying to explore what this collaboration for these two businesses look like in future. And they had one of their customers transporting 11 pallets of frozen veggies, and there was a diesel pipe in the front part of the cabin, obviously the cooling unit, that spilt probably a half a cup of diesel came out of this pipe in the pallet closest to the front wall of the vehicle. But because of the stringent safety requirements of this business, it required them to write off all 11 pallets of frozen veggies. In a case like this, predominantly large-scale suppliers and food producers would either send this product to landfill or to pig farmers predominantly. And in this case, just because we were at the right place at the right time, we were able to salvage 99.9% of that food and actually actively provide it into communities required. So it's definitely leaning into that supply chain knowledge overarching. But just to reiterate your point, I really believe we're scratching the surface on the amount of food that can actually be saved in the South African supply chain. And just being there and be able to put our hand up and say, yes, we are the conduit for that food, but you have the skill set, and more so you present the larger scale of availability of food. Let us partner together in order to try and utilize the space.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think that's very valuable what you've mentioned there, Jacques.